yeah, this is what the hallways are looking like right now. It's lit up green, and the main stuff has like emergency exit lights. Get an announcement. Here we go. What you gotta think about it? Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Harold again.
Here we go.
And as per previous announcement, we are having a technical blackout. We are actually having difficulties connecting one of our engine. And the entire engine team is working hard to get this back in order. And we are quite positive we will get the system back in order shortly, so I kindly ask for your patience for another few minutes. And thank you very much for your understanding and cooperation. Thank you.
So Captain just came on the thing. He said they have a problem with the engines. I'm concerned. This is how my videos start. Nothing good ever comes from these type of videos. I do gotta be honest and real. It was not as bad as I previously thought. Originally, I was thinking if the power went out, then we wouldn't be able to open up the doors to get into our room. No, we can get into our rooms, and it's good. I'll check with my parents. They're good. They're safe and okay. We got my grandparents on this trip as well. I was going into their room and knocking on the door. They did not respond. Hoping for the grace of God that they're in the room sleeping and not downstairs on deck 3 when our rooms are on deck 11. I have 2 grandparents that are limited mobility, so that would be a challenge if they had to now go up 10 flights of stairs. I did it, and I'm already huffing out of breath kind of as it is. I know they can't do it in their state. Hopefully everything works out good, y'all. I'll just make sure I get this recorded, just God forbid in case, whatever. Stay safe, people. Please stay safe.
I just got back from my Alaska cruise, and the last night we experienced a power outage. This was actually my first time experiencing a complete power outage on a cruise ship, and I'm praying that it is my last. But here's how it went down, and this is exactly what happened. So on our last day coming from Canada, from the Alaska cruise, they do have the final port of call, which is in Canada in the Victoria province, and this was actually on our way coming back to the States. And coming back here was around 10 o'clock or so p.m. and soon after we experienced power outage, and everything for a period of time was completely black. And soon after we did start to hear what seemed to be generators or what seemed to be lights in certain areas. Give you some background. At the time of the power outage, I was actually in the Lido deck coming back from Canada. The turnaround time from when you get back onto the cruise ship to where you have to have everything packed to be able to disembark and get off the next morning is a very, very tight turnaround window. So everybody was kind of getting food and kind of trying to go on about their business. There were a few final shows that were going on in a variety of places of the ship, and of course photos and things of that nature as well. And when the power went out, everyone was kind of confused. With that being said, once the light trimmings came on, I was able to, of course, first things first, get the vibe from the staff. The staff, of course, we're traveling, but they live there. They live on the ship. Many of them, of course, do contracts for 6 months at a time. So they're going to be there, whether it's their first contract, second, or many. So they've kind of seen it all, whether it's power outages, whether disgruntled, travelers, issues at port of calls. They've definitely seen it all. They've also traveled. They've also been able to get out off the ship for certain points and times as well. So they are a great resource to be able to get information from, and that was exactly what I did. I said, hey, this is one of the members of management, hey, power's out, what typically happens in this scenario, and how to go about a few different things here and there. And that individual was able to give me some good insight and also able to assist me in being able to not only plan for myself, but to plan the next steps for my family as well. Which leads to part 2, which is wait for instructions, but be vigilant from the captain. So the be vigilant from the captain piece is the power was actually out for a period of time, and this particular instance occurred on the Royal Caribbean Quantum of the Seas. And yes, that was actually the same day that the Royal Caribbean Icon of the Seas also had a power outage. However, their power outage was about 8 minutes or so. Ours was about 40 minutes or so. And so the Dynamic was quite different. But once the power went out and we started to get some trim or emergency lights going on, maybe 8 minutes or so into it, we did get an announcement overhead from the captain, said, hey, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing a power outage. We have our engineers working on it. Seems to be something's going on with an engine. And as soon as we have an update, we'll be able to get that information out to you and give you further advisement or guidance. What that further advisement or guidance is going to be and also when it's going to come is unknown. So some of us kind of like 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, we're kind of starting to get antsy about, do we hold tight? Do we stay in place? Do we get prepared to maybe, to evacuate the ship? What do we do? And in that particular situation is where I'm going to give you step 3. Understand what is electric and what is battery operated. So as it pertains to getting around the ship, here, you're going to have, of course, your elevators, other means of communication, other means of transportation, elevators, if there are escalators or other ways to be able to get around. Those are going to be powered by electricity. You're not going to be able to use those, and none of those will work. That is very important, especially if you're handicap accessible or wheelchair bound, because you're going to need that to get around, or you're going to need to find an alternative method to be able to get you around. So that's a conversation that needs to be had. And also, that's something, that discussion that perhaps should be had when you're getting onto the ship. Because once that stuff is down and you're not able to use it, you need to still be able to get around and need to be able to plan to get off the ship in the event that the captain does call for you to evacuate. Now, electric versus battery operated. Your doors to your staterooms and suites are battery operated. This means that they will still work in the event of a power outage. And going through, I experienced it. I'm here to tell you firsthand they did. I had nobody in my party. We were all in different rooms, had issues getting into their staterooms. They were battery operated, but the keys work. Now that was the same thing for the safes to the room. So when you go in your room, usually either in the closet or maybe in like a refrigerator area section, hidden will be a safe. That safe is also said to be battery operated. I didn't have any issues with it. I'll be able to go, get stuff out of the safe. It was a non-issue. So that is something to be mindful of. Electric versus battery operated. Know your muster station and visit it daily. Now when I say visit it daily, I'm not saying, hey, go to the muster station, sit there, kumbaya. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is at least visit it or at least walk by it so you and everybody in your party knows where it is. Because as soon as the power outage went out, like I said, it was 10 p.m. or so at night, it was pitch black outside. So the first thought that people had was not, let's go jump off the ship. It was like, hey, let's connect with other individuals to be able to see what's what, or at minimum, let's connect with other people in our party. So being able to know where the muster station is, at that point in time, it will be on your sailing sign card or your sea pass, depending on who your voyage is with. So it will say muster, and it will typically have a letter and a few numbers, vice versa. It will have that, and that will be your station. The hang to it is why I say visit it, or at least, make sure you get familiar with it throughout your cruise, is when we had the power outage on our 7-day cruise, it was night 6. So it was the last night of the cruise. And as many of us know, when you do your muster station, you do your muster visit, you're doing that as soon as you get on the ship, day 1. So this is a week later. So unless you were familiar with your muster station, to definitely, make sure that you kept privy to it. There were definitely people who did not know where their muster station was. And at that point in time, to be honest with you, everybody was trying to figure out either where their muster station was or make sure that they get to their muster station or get their loved ones together so they can get their stuff to get to their muster station. No one was trying to sit around and say, hi, hon, let's get your sea pass card and let's see where your nobody was doing that. Nobody was doing that. Okay, so this is the real of the real situation of it. Everybody's perspective was something different. Many people were calm, but you also had other people in the party that were that were fearful. They were frightened, and reasonably so. Especially given on a situation where you're on the water, we're kind of moving a bit, and there's no electricity. So definitely keep that in mind. Do your due diligence. Make sure you understand the ship. Get familiar with the ship. Get familiar with where your muster station is. Visit it several times throughout the cruise, especially if you have little ones. Visit it several times throughout the cruise. Make sure they understand where the muster station is or a point of reference. So an example, my muster station on the Quantum of the Seas was actually directly next to the Bionic bar. So if for whatever reason I forgot the number of the muster station, or if I lost my sea pass, right? That could happen. If I lost my sea pass and I didn't have the card to actually have the number on it, I'm like, what's the number? Hey, I know where the Bionic bar is. Boom, my muster station's right there. Boom, I'm good to go. So definitely have a point of reference, and that's something that, though it's a small thing, it can be a big deal later on. Have a meetup spot for your family that's near your muster station, but outside of the muster station. Here's what I mean. So for my family, in this previous trip that we had to Alaska where we experienced the power outage, we were in a few different rooms. However, the rooms were all on the same floor, but because they were in different areas or sections of the ship, we were in 3 different muster stations. However, once the power went out, it would have been nice to have had a separate area where we were able to say, hey, if an emergency were to happen, we have this place here. Maybe it's on the floor that we all share, right? Hey, we're gonna get to this floor, or hey, we're gonna get to, the muster station area or floor. We're gonna come together in this spot. It could be at the statue. It could be maybe at one of the muster stations for the 3 groups. It could be anywhere, right? But the situation of it was, whereas if you get on a cruise ship and you have the app, you can communicate with other members of your family in the app, and you'll be able to do that via the phone. On the app, you go into the app. There's a communication section. For Royal Caribbean, I don't believe there was an additional fee to be able to use the service. You just needed to be able to have a smartphone. I do know for Carnival, it was a $5 fee for the week to be able to use the service, and to be honest, it was so worth it. It was so worth it because you're able to communicate with each other via text. Hey, I'm at such and such a spot. I'm heading somewhere else, so on and so forth. That it was to pretty much stay connected in some way without it being cumbersome or without it being perhaps too much. Now, if you don't want to be a part of that program, you don't have to. You just don't download the app, or you just don't use that portion of the app, and that's fine. But in the situation with the power outage, this is useless. This is absolutely useless. You're not going to be able to get information. You're not going to be able to communicate with everybody. It's going to be like old school vibes. So you will have to have an additional area where you can come together and say, hey, we're going to meet. An example that at the we're going to meet at the photo shop. We're going to meet at the entrance to the photo shop. Perfect. Everybody knows where the photo shop is. Everybody knows the floor. That's the entrance. In the event we have an emergency, that's where we're going to meet. So definitely recommend you have a family meeting spot that's perhaps outside of your muster station. Now, with that being said, getting to the family meetup spot, it also gives you guys as a family the opportunity to be able to have communication that needs to be had. What I will say about the communication part that needs to be had is some individuals, when my family, we got together, some individuals to say, hey, let's stay put, and you had other individuals that were ready to rock and roll and evacuate and get off the ship waiting for the captain's call. And that definitely, it became a divide. It was a split. It was a split, right? So in there, it allowed us to have the communications that we needed to have in order for us to be able to move forward and make the best decisions possible. So definitely, I would definitely recommend that. And I wish that had been something that we had either, configured or discussed beforehand. But I'm glad we had the experience that we had and we're able to perhaps apply it to future cruises and future travel. I'm Lanisha Kier. You're watching Travel Tips by Kier. I'm a former airport employee and world traveler, here to give you all the nitty-gritty tips and tricks that those big companies just don't want you to know. If that's something you're interested in, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification so you're notified when I have a future upload. And we're going to jump into our last tip. So, keep your stateroom organized with a go bag. So, when we talk about the go bag, we're going to talk about specifically your essentials. Now, understanding there may be a few of your essential items that are going to be in your safe. That's fine. You're going to be able to access that, as I mentioned earlier, because it's your stateroom and your safe will be battery operated. That's not an issue. But you do need to have your stuff somewhat organized to be able to get into your stateroom. Understand that your stateroom will only have an emergency light. Now, the emergency light, for the most part, illuminated most of the room, but it was not all of the room. So if you had important items that were maybe stowed under your bed or stowed somewhere else where you had to go a bunch of different areas to kind of get your go bag together, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it, because in the event that there is an emergency where they do say, hey, captain says, hey, go to your muster stations, prepare to evacuate. When you come to the muster station, once that group is ready to go and they're making their way over onto the tenders to be able to lower, if you've missed that tender and they've already lowered into the water, they ain't coming back for you. You got to try to find another tender, try to get into another difficult situation. And if they're saying they don't have space at the other tender, things get sticky. So get your go bag ready, have your stuff so you can get your stuff and be ready to get off in the event that the captain does make that announcement. Now, a few things, having experienced the power outage on the water, especially at night, that I would have had in my go bag. One, a flashlight. And my grandma actually had a flashlight. She had one in her handbag. I was like, Where'd that come from? Where'd that come from, ma'am? She actually had a flashlight in her handbag. Kudos to grandma. She was ready to rock and roll. I would give it to her. But that is not something that I would have considered. Definitely not something that I would have carried. It's that I'm one of those that carry the minimum, especially when you're on a cruise ship. Pay for everything with your sailing sign card and my phone, and that was pretty much it. Now, with that being said, you can perhaps use a flashlight on your phone. So if you have battery or life left, you can use the flashlight on your phone. It's better than nothing. Though there was emergency lighting in certain areas of the ship, there were other areas of the ship that were pitch black. And given that it happened and it was night, it was black on black on black. Everything was black. So it's different being at home and and it's night and you're in your room and you're in your space, where everything is, and you're in your home. But being in a foreign place, being on a ship and everything's black is kind of scary. So having a flashlight or something like that or other light available is definitely a must. Now, with that being said, having a battery pack charged and ready to go. This is something that I had in my stateroom and I did have in my mini bag ready to go. But I brought it actually for my excursions and tours in Alaska. I didn't bring it for a power outage on the cruise. But this is one of those things, so if for whatever reason you do have to get off the ship, have your go back, you are able to charge your phone, your iPad, other devices once you're able to get signal and other service. That is something I would have in my go back. Medication, anything, pretty much anything valuable, rings, wedding bands, medication, passports, identifications, cards, anything you have in your wallet stuff, that needs to be in your go bag. And also cash. So if you do have anything like that, because something like that, depending on wherever you end up, you're likely going to want to make arrangements from that point to be able to get home. And that's likely going to be a pricey situation. So like I said, cash, cards, ID, passport, the flashlight, the battery pack, and finally your life vest. Right? So your life vest. So many of them, they will of course have them in their stateroom. So make sure when you get into your stateroom and you're doing your check that you of course have enough vests in there to cover everybody in the room. In my room, it was just myself and one other individual. So I was like, cool, boom, those are the vests. You know where they are, good to go. On the tender situation, I would say on the tenders that I've been on, there were vests on the tenders to be able to support around 100 or 150 persons is what it says on the tender. And those are going to be those little boats that are hanging on to the side of the ship. And many of you may have actually been in them to actually tender to an excursion or tender to an island if you had to tender in to a port of call. So those are actually those boats, and you will see the life vest on there ready to go and ready to use. So if for whatever reason you have everything and the only thing you're missing is your life vest, don't go back to the room for that. Head to your muster station because they're going to have those life vests on the tender boats ready to go. Definitely let me know if you have any questions or concerns. If you have any questions about what you think you should do if you have an upcoming cruise and you have the concern, especially for the Icon of the Seas. Icon of the Seas, I actually saw it on its third voyage this year. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I am super, super excited for you if you have your upcoming voyage on the Icon of the Seas. But with that being said, they have experienced several power outages. They've experienced several. Like I said, they had one the same day we experienced one on the Quantum of the Seas, and then they've also had, I want to say, another two after that one. That has occurred. So not to say that it's likely to happen, but it may happen, my friend. It may happen. So definitely make sure you save the video here, share it with anyone who you know is either going on an upcoming cruise, especially for the Icon of the Seas, or any upcoming cruise here. It is hurricane season is upon us, and it is early this year. And if you have any questions or concerns, make sure you hit them in the comments. I do go through the comment section. Give me a little bit because sometimes there are a lot, but I do go through the comment section. And also in the community, if you've experienced a power outage, what would you have done differently? I mentioned what I would have done differently and also the mistakes that I made, like not having my gold bag ready. But definitely hit me in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!